My life story in 2 hours. So I used to do a lot of these kind of videos where I'd try and tell my life story in like an hour or 2 hour session. So this is going to be a very long and very dry video where I'm literally just going to be talking at the screen. There's going to be nothing to entertain you other than my words, my voice, and my hands. Woo. My life story, right? So let's get cracking. Set yourselves down, get yourselves in the zone for a long and winding tale that I will try to make as chronologically accurate as possible, but that's where things are going to go wibbly, I'm sure. So I'll start off. I was born November the 30th, 1985, the same year as Back to the Future was referencing all the time. 1985, we've got to get back to 1985. So I sort of developed this idea that 1985 was some kind of special year because it was in Back to the Future a lot. And yeah, so I remember that film growing up, but I was born November, it was a Saturday, 11:51 p.m. in the night. And the story is actually my mum was suffering from a condition called preeclampsia. So she was really unwell towards the end of her pregnancy, and I had to be born by cesarean section, in fact. So I was ripped untimely from the mother's womb, like they say in Shakespeare, and out I popped. Now, my mum nearly died during that experience, so she was very close to death during that experience, and that story was told to me often as I was growing up. Oh, you nearly killed your mother, kind of thing. When you were born, you nearly killed your mum. So I had that going around in my head. And the next thing that pops up is things like playing, being bored in my room, playing with money, making a little, like a ramp for money to go down. So I'd make a little, like a long ramp made out of cardboard or paper, and cardboard. You put a 50p in it and goes down the ramp into a collection tin or something. And I used to mess around making contraptions for my bedroom. So I made this one contraption where when the alarm goes off, you press the alarm button, you pull a string, and this toy car comes down this ramp with a wet flannel on it, and it's supposed to dump the flannel on my face to wake me up in the morning. With limited success, so it didn't really work very well. So I would say I had quite a normal childhood, except for one thing that stands out a lot, which is my dad's obsession with nudity. Like, he had to be nude a lot of the time. He didn't wear pajamas in bed, and neither did my mum. But my dad would often kind of come downstairs half either in a dressing gown or completely nude with his todge flapping around everywhere. And I think that somewhat traumatized me as a young person, as a child. I just don't think you're supposed to see your family's anatomy that much as a child. So that was a bit disturbing. So other than that, like, there was also periods where if it would rain in the summer, and my dad would go out into the nude and encourage us, me and my brother, to get naked and dance around in the rain naked. So that was also probably traumatizing, to be fair. But at the time, it was a kind of fun experience to be dancing around naked in the rain in the back garden. So yeah, like I say, trigger warning. There's going to be lots of triggers throughout this to do with like mental health, trauma, psychosis, crime, violence, sectioning, jail. I mentioned psychosis, yeah. So trigger warning for mental health and trauma and stuff like that. So if you want to bail out now, now's the time. So I had like a fairly usual upbringing. I had like 4 grandparents, 2 parents, 1 brother, 1 cat, 2, like an auntie and uncle, only one uncle and 1 auntie. What else in the family? So I had the cat as well. She was called Puss, or Pusskins, or Pussy. So my dad used to say that my first 2-syllable word was actually pussy. So he used to trot that around the dinner table and stuff. Oh yeah. My original name was Ross, so we'll be referring to me as Ross sometimes, and then Shiva later on. So he would say, oh, Ross's first word was pussy, first 2-syllable word, and his first more than that syllable word was diplodocus. Diplodocus, 4-syllable word, yeah. So I did really well at school as a young person. I was getting like top grades in all my subjects. And that ran throughout primary school and secondary school. So I did really well in both primary and secondary in terms of academia. So thinking about childhood at primary school, I got bullied a lot for having ginger hair. So words like ginger was touted around a lot, ginger, 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 and that traumatized me as well. And then later on in secondary school, I got both the ginger thing and the gay thing was thrown at me a lot. So gay, 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 homo, homo boy, queer, stuff like that, which was completely unfounded at the time. So, like, yeah, what to say? So, like, I had an interesting and varied experience as a child. So I used to play tennis like every Tuesday or something and learned good skills on tennis. I used to rollerblade around. I used to skateboard around on one of these old skateboards with the big fat wheels. Not like the newfangled decks, like the slim decks, but the old decks, the wide decks with the fat wheels. I had a turtle skateboard. I used to like riding my bike around. What else? Playing in the garden with the swing ball thing. So you got like a pole with a metal thing, and the ball swings around, and you whack it back and forth. I used to do the mowing of the lawn and the washing up when I was a child, as well as my chores. I had a childminder or a nanny. I won't mention her name, but let's call her Shaggy. That was her nickname, so we called her Shaggy or Shaggy. So Shaggy was there, a female nanny, childminder, to help bring us up. As there was like 4 of us in the group of children who she looked after. There was me, my brother, this kid from around the road, and her son. And I'm not going to name them either for privacy reasons. But we were a fun little group of kids. We used to play handball. We made up our own version of handball, where we'd have like a tennis ball or a small round fluffy ball or something from some toy set, and we'd whack the ball from the end of what we had a playroom, which was built like in the 90s at some point, like an extension on the house that was built solely for a study and a playroom. So we had a study with the computer and all the files and stuff in it for my parents. And then later on, when we started using the computer for games, we'd use the PC for games in there. And so we play handball, where you whack the ball from one end of the playroom to the other end of the playroom and try to hit it against a large pillow, which was the goal. So we used to do that. We actually used to make videos as well, like home videos. We made stop motion animation videos where you'd press the button on the camcorder twice quickly, so it would just take like a couple of frames, and then you'd move the plasticine model a little bit, and then you'd press the button twice again, so it goes start stop. So you just get like a couple of frames, and then it moves on to the next bit, and you just do this over and over again to create an animation using plasticine models. So I made like Wallace and Gromit ones. We used like various different toys, and we made a Pokemon one. So we did stop motion animation, and I remember spending like hours at this, filming with my little sets, with my little characters, and then there was no way of really making them talk except to pause the video and then speak. Not pause the video, but start recording and then speak, so the character would stay still, and I would speak, or my brother would speak, to get the words to come out of us. So it would be brrr, pause, blah 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 blah, speak, and then blah, 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 the animation would carry on again. So it was a bit kind of stop start. The animations, we did one about Christmas, the Nativity. We did our own version of that. And we also made like our own like kind of fan fiction versions of well-known movies. So we did like a Men in Black one. We did a couple of James Bond ones. We did Rescuing the Princess one featuring my cousin, who was a young girl at the time. And like we were between the ages of like, let's say 5 to 14, doing these stuff, and everyone was different ages. So my brother was younger than me. Everyone was younger than me. I was the oldest. And yeah, so we used to like make these films. So James Bond, Men in Black, The Matrix, and involved like karate because I was learning karate at the time as well. So we learned karate for a few years. I got up to purple belt, I believe, which is the one before brown belt. Well, you get purple with a stripe and then you go to brown belt. So I got up to purple belt, first purple belt. I'm doing Shotokan karate, where you have to do like Ichi, Sanshi, Go, Roku. Those are the counting, the numbers. Ichi, Geidambarai. I don't even know the names, but punching like that, blocking like that, kicking, all that stuff. So I learned karate for a while, which was good fun. And there was a really hot girl there who seemed to be about the same sort of age as me, and I never managed to make contact with her, unfortunately. But yeah, so that's just a side piece. But so karate, tennis, swimming. I used to go swimming a lot as a child as well. And I met this girl from my primary school while we were swimming one time, and we had a lot of fun going down the slide and messing around, playing games in the swimming pool with flotation devices and stuff. And I got a crush on this girl when I was like, I don't know, 10 or something. And later on, we played kiss chase around the playground at primary school, and it turned out that she fancied me and I fancied her, and she lived near me, and we ended up going out, and she actually had the same surname as me. So that was the two Wilsons going out together, which was interesting. And that kind of relationship actually sort of fizzled because she kept like tickling my armpit, and I had a hole in my t-shirt one time, and she like poked her finger through the hole of the t-shirt and tickled my armpit, and I was like, this is getting too sexual now. And she also told me that she'd had some form of sex with her previous boyfriend, who was older than me. Like, she was like 1 year older than me, and so she was about 12 or something, and he was 12, and they'd had some form of intercourse where she said he went inside her. And at that point I was like, I'm 11, man. I don't know what this is too scary and too odd and too weird. So I think I went on holiday over the summer, bought her a gift on holiday in France, and when I came back, I was just like, I couldn't bring myself to give her the gift. And I was like, no, I don't want to go back out with her anymore. That's the end. And I remember one other thing about this was I took her on a date to see the film Flipper. If you've ever seen that film, Flipper, with the Australian, not Hulk Hogan, Paul Hogan, I think his name is, the Crocodile Dundee bloke in the film Flipper. And her mum was adamant that she was going to pay for the ticket. And I was like, no, I'll pay for the ticket because I want to be the man, be chivalrous. And I really attempted to pay for this ticket, and then she just slipped me £5 at the end. And I was like, what can I do? This woman's incessant about paying, and I just gave up. I was like, okay, fine, I'll just take the money, And I did feel bad about it because I really wanted to be the upstanding gentleman and pay for that cinema ticket. So that was that. What else can I say? Football wasn't really my thing, I must say, at school. Another aspect of primary school was I used to like beating up the older kids, or getting into fights with the older kids. So there was always some kind of fight that I could get into with older kids at one point, especially like during the snowing era. Back when it used to snow a lot in England, we used to roll these giant snowballs and make snowmen, and not snow women, but snowmen out in the field, which was really cool. And there was this bit of the field that was called the wild area, which was left to grow wild, as it says. And I would go like foraging around in there occasionally. But there was like, I used to like fighting with the older boys. And somehow I used to think that I was winning, that I always won these fights. And that would happen when I went to see like family friends. We had family friends in Yorkshire. And there were like two older kids, and I would fight with them and believe that I'd won somehow. I don't know if I did win or not, but it seemed like I was winning somehow. I always came out victorious from these little fights. And they were obviously quite tame as fights go, sort of wrestling and writhing around and maybe pushing and kicking and shoving, I don't know, and punching, but it was all very weak and tame, so no one got injured that I'm aware of. I didn't get injured, and I don't think. However, one thing that happened at primary school was, like, I think it was on my first day or second day, I got sent to the headmaster's office, because this guy came up to me and he said, punch me in the face. Come on, punch me in the face. I dare you to punch me in the face. So I punched him in the face, knocked his tooth out. So I got sent to the headmaster's office, and he gave me a stern reprimand. He asked me what had happened, and I said that, well, he asked me to, so I did it. Not knowing any better or not knowing any different, that this was something wrong to do. If someone asked for it, and you're just supplying them with a service kind of thing. So there was a bit of violence when I was a child, I must say. And another thing about primary school was I had a couple of friends. We had like a little trio of friends. I'm not going to mention their names either, but it was me and the fatty and the thinny, as we call them. One of them was from Hungary, and he spoke very good English, and we used to like try and write plays. He wanted to do like a play version or a film version of Matilda before the film had come out. So he said, what you got to do is you got to get the book, and then you got to write out each line of speech, and then you got to write in stage directions. And I think I got about 3 lines in before I realized this was far too hard for me to do as a child, and I just gave it up. But we used to play games like pretending to be dinosaurs in the playground, running around being dinosaurs. And we used to play Sonic the Hedgehog in the playground, like pretending to be Sonic by jumping and pretending to roll into a ball and stuff, even though we didn't really roll into a ball. We just crunched down a little bit and jumped. And there was a lot of fun in primary school playground, although I do remember going to the timeout square a lot for some reason. I obviously was doing things wrong. I had to go to the timeout square, and I would just like dig in the ground, the little earth bits of mud and stuff with a stick, and just wait before I had, you have to stay in there for however long and then come out and play again. There was a girl called Soggy Patch, because there was a legend that she'd wet herself and left a soggy patch on her coat, and we used to tease her, calling her Soggy Patch. What else can I remember? So we formed this thing called the Bully Busters, which was me and this fatty, let's call him Fatty because he was slightly chubby. Me and Chubba, the chubby man, Fatty, let's call him Fatty. Me and Fatty went round, called ourselves the Bully Busters, and we basically like patrolled the playground looking for bullies and telling them off, and maybe even reporting them to the teacher on patrol. So that was fun, the Bully Busters. Don't think it really worked, but we did our best to bust the bullies. What else? Yeah, like I said, I did well at primary school. I got chosen to be a prefect at primary school, and got a little badge, a little yellow badge saying prefect on it, and basically just had to stand there and make sure people were walking through in an orderly fashion in the mornings. And then my life of crime began later on in primary school. One of the prefect's duties was to put away the lunch trolleys. And so we had to put away the lunch trolleys into the kitchen at the end of the day, and at certain other points during the day as well, I think, but definitely at the end of the day. Now it came to the end of the day, and we put these lunch trolleys in, and we saw that the lunchtime till in the dining room kitchen area was actually open, and then there was a jar with like £5 notes and coins in it. So a bunch of us who were doing this prefect duty decided to steal some of the money. Started off with like 2p's to begin with, put them in your dinner money pouch that you get on this little money belt, they called it, your money belt. Had a little zip on it, and you like put it around your waist and carry your dinner money in it, your money belt. So we'd slip like 2p's, 1p's, 5p's, 10p's to begin with into the money belt and go home like, yeah, we've got spare change to go and buy sweets with and stuff. And then it escalated to stealing the pound coins and I don't think they had £2 coins, but like 50p's, 20p's, £2 coin, not £2, £1 coins. And then I think there was even a fiver there at one point, and someone else I think stole that fiver. And when the fiver was stolen, we all got called into the headmistress's office because it changed from a headmaster to a headmistress by that point. And I didn't own up to it. The one person owned up to it, and we were all just silent. And no, we didn't do it. We didn't do it. We didn't do it. But this one person had owned up to it, and we all got in trouble. But I guess the lack of evidence, she bore all the blame for this crime. And actually later on, when I was older and I was doing like this kind of karma, like karmic retribution thing, where I try and make amends for my karma that I'd done badly, my bad karma at school, and when I thought I'd harmed anyone in the past, I tried to make an amends for it using karma by doing a good karma. So what I did was, like, I think I gave them a check for 50 quid, the primary school, and I offered to do a gig with them playing guitar. And I worked with my childminder's son, who went to the same school as me. He was still in primary school at that point. I'd moved on to secondary school, or even past secondary school. And so I decided to, like, offer my services as a guitarist, and we ended up doing like this song, like all about the Romans, and I used a Red Hot Chili Peppers riff, which I can't exactly remember which one it was, but it went doom 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 doom, whatever. And then the song went, Romans, Romans, what's going on with the rhythm? Romans, Romans, what's going on with the rhythm? That's all I can remember. So I did try to, like, reimburse the primary school for my crimes and absolve myself of the karma there. So that was my life of crime. Then so when I broke up with, or just ghosted, the other Wilson that I was going out with, another girl came along. Let's call her Braces. So Braces had braces, and I had my first tongue kiss with this girl, age about 12, I guess, 11, 12. It was during the school summer holidays between primary school and secondary school. So I had this kiss with this Braces girl, and the braces kind of got in, like, on my lip or something, and it hurt me, and I didn't like it at all. So it kind of put me off tongue kissing for a while. I mean, it's a bit early age to be tongue kissing anyway, I suppose. But we had our first tongue kiss. It was some truth or dare, spin the bottle type of thing. I dare you to kiss Braces, because we were going out. We've been going out for a few months. And another thing of this Braces person, which she had like two younger siblings, a boy and a girl, brother and sister. And they were ruinous, man. They were horrible little brats. They kept, like, taking my bike and smashing it against the wall in the local, like, estate area where we'd go and hang out and play whatever games we would play. And I was trying to spend time with my girlfriend, and her brother and sister were just constantly harassing me and picking on me and kicking me and stuff and trashing my bike against the wall, like I said. So I remember, like, I think she broke up with me, and so there's two memories about that, actually. I remember after the time that they were bashing my bike against the wall, I rode home without wearing my helmet, because what I would do is, I didn't like wearing my helmet because I thought it was uncool. So I would ride home, usually not wearing the helmet, and then just put the helmet on right at the last minute so that my parents could see that I was wearing my helmet. And I walked home, I think I just, like, pushed my bike the rest of the way home after a certain point, and I didn't put my helmet on, and I just, like, pushed my bike the last bit of the way without my helmet on, and got in trouble with my parents for not having worn my helmet. My dad did this demonstration where he put a brick on the end of a piece of rope and swung it round his head and said, right, this is about the speed you'd be going on your bike, and if you were to crash into a wall or hit the pavement, put your head in front of this brick, Shiva, or Ross. Put your head in front of this brick. And I went, no way am I doing that. Because obviously I knew that brick equals smash, but it was a very vivid demonstration as to wear your helmet. Yeah, I wore my helmet for a little while after that, but again, I just went back to not wearing it because it wasn't cool. I later got told off by one of the teachers at secondary school for not wearing my helmet as well. So there we go. So there's the other one where, so she broke up with me, this braces girl, and I was outside the front of her house on my bike, and I tried to get on my bike, and my pedal slipped, my foot slipped off the pedal, and I fell over. The bike fell onto me, and I was like sprawled on the ground, like squished by my bike, while she was like up in her balcony, like laughing at me, going, and I went, "So you're just gonna leave me here? Leave me here to die on the pavement, are you?" And I also remember I used to play that game with flowers, you know, like buttercups and daisies, where you pick off the flower and it's like, she loves me not, she loves me, she loves me not. And I put a lot of store into that game. Whether she actually loved me or not was all down to the flowers. And I used to sing, "You're the one I want, you are the one I want," ooh, 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 in the hopes that she would understand that I was singing about her. Anyway, so she broke up with me, which was fair enough. And then we move on to secondary school, which was okay to begin with, I suppose. I didn't want to go to secondary school. I didn't like the uniform at all for some reason. I didn't want to have my photograph taken. And there's a photograph of me on my first day of secondary school wearing my uniform, looking extremely miserable, like. So yeah, so secondary school wasn't fun on the first day. I didn't enjoy it, but oh, I should go back to the primary school just quickly to say I really did not want to be at primary school when I first went there, and I was crying and wailing and where's my mum gone and all that stuff. Anyway, so that was that. But so secondary school, yeah, like I said, I did really well at secondary school right off the bat. My brain just learned things really easily, memorized things really easily, could pick things up quickly, understand things, concepts that were thrown at us like physics, maths, biology, chemistry, religion, all the subjects, English. I did really well, especially in English, and I enjoyed doing like art and music. I think I even enjoyed doing IT, but I ended up not doing that for GCSE. So yeah, secondary school, there was a girl from primary school came to the secondary school with us, and she had always been like my best friend slash wife at primary school. I won't mention her name either, but so during primary school I had this like long-term girl friend who everyone knew I fancied, but we'd been on like one date where we played the game Snoopy on the PC, and it was like a point and click Snoopy game, and rolled around on our rollerblades and stuff. And I tried to show off my one rollerblade trick, which was you just wear one rollerblade and you push with the other leg and like go around with only one rollerblade. And I thought it was cool because I saw this girl down the road doing it one time because I think she'd hurt her foot or something, so she couldn't wear both rollerblades. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. Let's do the one rollerblade trick. So I showed this girl that, this girlfriend, and we never quite managed to make it into a boyfriend-girlfriend thing, apart from maybe for like that one date. But everyone knew that I was for her and she was for me during primary school, even though I would tease her relentlessly about whatever. Bad breath, I used to call her. Death breath. The death breath Jeff. I'd call her Jeff for some reason. Other things in primary school actually are coming to the surface. So we used to have this, I said I had like the group of like this trio. There's another kid came on board to the trio and became a foursome. Sounds wrong. But yeah, there's four of us running around as kids, and this one Indian guy, I'm not going to say his name either, but he basically, the first time I was aware of him was he was sat there going like this, pretending to be a robot or something, and I wasn't sure whether he was real or whether he was a robot because he was just making this sound. And I went, "Are you a robot?" And I think that was the beginning of our friendship. So we had these computers at primary school as well, and I used to like playing with those computers. You know, there was games on it and stuff. Like they had these keyboards where they had like an overlay, like a sheet that overlaid on the keyboards, and it would have different buttons with different words on them or different symbols. I don't even know. I think they were Apple computers back in those days. Weird computers, and I used to play whatever games they had on there, adventure games. I actually remember going to summer school, like a summer camp thing, pretty much every summer during primary school, and they would have like computers to play on there as well. And I spent most of my time just playing these like text-based adventure games on the computer, and I wrote some articles for this newspaper about a land train, which I'd heard about or something, and wrote an article about it for this summer camp newspaper. And they had a swimming pool there, and there was another girl there. I call her Rebecca because I never found out who she was after that summer camp. So Rebecca, I tried to like get with her by impressing her in the swimming pool by doing this move that I came up with, which was called the dolphin move, where you'd spin around like, look at me, I'm a dolphin. And that was supposed to impress the girl. And I think she went, wow, yeah, you've got great moves. And that was the beginning of, I thought she fancied me. Like, did she fancy me or not? That was a summer camp with the swimming pool. Okay, so moving back to secondary school. So, like, at the age of, I think, 13, my first granddad died. And I became depressed, properly depressed at that point. I was still able to function at school, but I was just aware of death now. And I hadn't really been aware of death at all previous to that. So my granddad on my mum's side died, age maybe 71 or something. And yeah, that really hit me. And I don't think I grieved it very well, if at all. I don't think I grieved that granddad very well. I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't cry very much. I noticed my mum would sometimes be crying in the mornings, which I presumed was to do with my granddad dying because it was her dad. But we went to the funeral parlor first, and like, of this granddad, I remember him telling me stories about the war because I think he was in the Navy. Yeah, he was in the Navy during the Second World War. Was he in the Navy during the Second World War? That doesn't make sense. He was in the Navy during certain periods of time. Yeah, because he would have been too young to actually be in the Navy during the Second World War. But he told me stories about being evacuated in the 1940s, 30s, during the Second World War. Told me all about the Second World War, and I just didn't really get it. I didn't understand the meaning of it really at that time. But he was a very gentle man, quite soft, and they were also very wealthy. That side of the family was very wealthy. They'd like built up a hotel that they turned into an old people's home, and then so they ran that for a while, and then they sold it for over £1 million, and were like perhaps even 2 million quid or something. And so they were millionaires, millionaire grandparents, and they used to give good gifts as birthday gifts and Christmas gifts. Like expensive gifts would come, and money gifts would come as well. And they used to come around every week and give us toffees, like these little Werther's Originals or other forms of toffee. That was a like regular thing, and that was the first thing that we used to say, me and my brother, when my grandparents on that side showed up at the house. Toffees, please, toffees, toffees, please. And they'd hand us a toffee, and that was like, yeah, wicked. That's the way we kicked off every meeting with those grandparents. So granddad on that side died, Granddad Bill, when I was age 13, I think, and yeah, and so from that point onwards, I was either 13 or 14. I remember wanting him to stay alive because he was ill with. I'm not exactly sure what he was ill with, but it might have been some form of like leukemia, blood cancer type thing. And he'd had heart attacks, I think, and had to have like a bypass for them. So he was ill for like most of my life in some way. And towards the end of his life, he looked ill, and he had this bruise on his face that just wouldn't heal from maybe a fall or something. He'd fallen over and clocked his face, and he had this bruise on his face that wouldn't heal. So he didn't look that well towards the end of his life. But they played golf for as much as they could, for as much time as he could anyway. And my gran continued to play golf after he died for a little while, and until she developed Parkinson's. But we'll get onto that a bit later. We're still talking about my first granddad dying. So when he died, this idea of impermanence and death just infiltrated my mind and my understanding. And I just saw it everywhere, in everything, in plants, in people, in situations, in life, in words. Used to trouble me. Words started to trouble me. That words were impermanent. They were always being born and then dying. So one word would suddenly dissolve into a new word, then another word, then another word, and at the end of it, they would disappear into thin air. Like, where are the words gone? They've all disappeared into thin air. And that would trouble me. I used to look at like plants and see them waving and be like, wow. So first they're in this position, then that dies, then they move in this position. So they're constantly in movement. They're constantly in flux in some form of impermanence, and just shows that they're going to die eventually. And I'm going to die eventually. Everyone around me is going to die eventually. So this grief around my granddad dying really hit me extremely hard and made me depressed and caused this obsessive compulsive thinking about death and impermanence from that early age of 13. And it tainted all of my experiences. Like, somehow in school, I was a bit more free from that, but in my own time and like when I was on holiday, I was just struck by how every pleasurable moment would be so fleeting, that happiness was only like a temporary experience. Like, smiles would come onto my face and then immediately they would go. So the happiness is there and then it's gone. It's very temporary. So this really like made me depressed, and I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Just even the word impermanence. I don't know where I even got that word from, but I think it might have come from some teaching from the Buddha, because he does talk about this impermanence thing a lot. And I was just constantly aware of death. Everything's going to die. Everything's fleeting, and there's no way around it. And all our happiness is just temporary, like a temporary buzz of happiness that just dissolves immediately once the moment's gone. And like, I sort of understood that people were kind of almost seeking to avoid that realization of death, and were doing things to make us happy in the moment, but not realizing that it would just dissolve instantly. So I just have this memory of people jumping into a pool while I was on holiday in Turkey one time. I was on one of these all expenses paid, all inclusive holidays, sun sail holiday. And there were like some teenagers who were a bit older than me. They were like 15, 16, and I was 13, I think. I just remember that holiday, looking at everything and going, oh, these people jumping in the pool, yeah, they might be happy. It looks happy now, but as soon as they've gone into the pool, they're not happy anymore. Just the jumping experience is the happiness experience. Then they're in the water and they're not happy anymore. It's all impermanent. It all reminds me of death. So that was when my depression started. And I was basically a miserable teenager and very angsty. I'd get anxiety as well during that time. So I would, like, honestly, just again, trigger warnings, sex and masturbation. So I would wank to relieve the pressure of the stress from schoolwork. And that worked, actually. Every time I get anxiety from schoolwork, in my own room, in private, not in public or anything dodgy like that. But yeah, I would express myself, shall we say, and it would get rid of the anxiety. So that was one trick I learned. What else can I say? So I got bullied a lot again about being gay this time, as well as the ginger thing. So the gay thing was a little bit there at primary school, like the old "you dropped your gay card" went round for a while. Oh, you dropped your gay card. Or it was like something like you dropped something, and it's like, oh, it's your gay card. I don't know if any of you guys went through that, the drop the gay card thing. So that was there a little bit at primary school, but it was mainly ginger, and plays on my name as well as Ross. So Ross the boss, Ross the toss, Ross the tosser, Ross the boss used to wind me up. I didn't like that nickname thing. Yeah, so you can see why I eventually changed my name, because I never really clicked with the name Ross, honestly. It just seems to remind me of my depression, the name Ross. Anyway, so I was 13, so I went on these holidays, and did I pull anyone? No, not at that point. But so I was angsty about girls, and like there were other kids around me at the same sort of age who were starting to get sexual with their girlfriends and stuff, and I felt like I was left out of the loop somehow. I just didn't get the girlfriend until the age of 16, I think it was, where I had my first proper girlfriend, where I squeezed real boobs. No, I was 15, sorry. I squeezed real boobs with my own two hands. And she was 16, I was 15. And that was good. And I fell in love with this girl. And yeah, so she was like a horse riding type girl. And I impressed her by showing her the veins on my arms. Like I had sort of quite muscly arms for a young teenager, and I had this like six-pack, and not pecs, but like a little bit of definition around on my chest, and like my body looked quite good as a teenager, and so I showed off these veiny arms that I had to impress her, and she said she was already impressed. We'd met previously to a skiing holiday, because we were going on holiday with this like another family who I don't know how it came about, honestly. It was to do with some mutual friends or something, and they knew each other. And she was from Kingston or Surbiton, and she came round to meet us, and she was wearing Vans and long baggy jeans. And at that time I was really into my rock music, which I have been since then as well. So it was bands like Nirvana, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, The Offspring, the Foo Fighters, Bush, like Pearl Jam a bit as well. I mentioned The Offspring, yeah. So those kinds of like 90s grunge, alternative rock, punk bands like that I was into. And she was really into rock music as well. She was into skateboarding culture, even if she wasn't a skateboarder. But I was big into my skateboarding as a teenager. So me and my brother used to go skateboarding with the proper decks that time, in those days. Like proper, what do you call it? What's the word? A symmetrical deck. Pretty much symmetrical decks, like the ones you see people skating on these days. When we used to get the different types of decks, so you'd get like a Blind deck or a World Industries deck, one of these big brand skateboarding makes that you could order online or get them from a skate shop somewhere. I think there used to be like a skate shop in Windsor. There used to be 2 skate parks in Windsor, which was near to where I lived. I lived in Slough. And there was a few different skate parks around in Slough as well, and we used to ride our bikes down to them and put the skateboards on either on the backpack or on a rack at the back of the bike. go down to the skate park with my brother, skate around and stuff, and that was cool. So yeah, I met this girl. She was into like grunge and skate stuff. She wore the right brands and things. She had braces as well at the time, actually, which wasn't great, but they later came off and it looked okay, I suppose. I think she still had some sort of dodgy tooth thing going on, but she also had a bit of a hook nose, which I wasn't very pleased about. But anyway, she was attractive enough, and so stupid story. Like, I also fancied her friend, girlfriend, friend, girl, whatever. And there was a kid or a teenager there who I thought was gay or something, because he kept looking at me when we went round to hers. Went round to my girlfriend's place for watching movies and stuff and drinking, I guess. And he kept turning around and looking at me with these weird eyes, and I was like, "Are you gay or something? What's going on? Why do you keep looking at me?" So I don't know. And then the other girl over there was this my girlfriend's friend, and I kind of fancied her more than the girl I was going out with. So I did some like strange jiggery pokery where I said something about this girl. I started talking to this girl, said something about the gay guy maybe, and then it all got back to my girlfriend, and she wasn't very happy about this, and that was probably one of the reasons why she ended up breaking up with me. But she just said that I was too immature. I was a year younger than her, and yeah, so that ended there, unfortunately. But I did get my first experience of sexuality with this girl. She like, while we were kissing and stuff, she let me squeeze her boobs with a top on, and then it got to like under the blouse, and she was like, "No, that's enough." So it was a very exhilarating experience, the whole sex thing as a teenager, and more of that happened later. So at this point in my life, like, everything was about girls and women. Well, girls, of my same age. And so that was like, I became obsessed with girls. And like, there was a girl in my French class who I'd always sit next to, and I was a bit of a perv, honestly. I kept trying to like sneak a peek through her blouse, like the little buttons were open, and I was trying to sneak a peek through her blouse, and never managed to see anything really, but I was just being a perv. And I never got caught either. Fucking hell. So the girl who I was always friends with at primary school, who I mentioned earlier, she got really into her music. She was always kind of into music a bit. They called her the wife when I was at primary school, right? So she came to secondary school with me, and the kind of fancying thing never stopped from my end. She later turned out to be a lesbian, but that's another part that we'll get onto later. So so she was into her music, and she and I. So I learned like piano, keyboards when I was very young, like age, I don't know, 5 to 7 or something. I learned keyboards and piano, and I got my grade 1, I think, when I was like quite young. And then when I went to secondary school, my parents said, "You can't play guitar," because I really wanted to get an electric guitar and learn to play guitar, because one of the final things that happened at primary school was I'd learned a bit of guitar in primary school as well. Just some simple things like the D chord and the A chord, I think, and the E minor maybe, or the E major chord. D, A, and E on the guitar, and a couple of little picking bits like, "We're going to the zoo, zoo, zoo," playing the tune to that. I also learned recorder, as everyone I think has to learn recorder at primary school. It's mandatory. But yeah, so I learned guitar, and one of the final things that happened at primary school that had a big impact on me was that the guitar teacher there was also the head of year, and he brought in his electric guitar, and it was like this sunburst Les Paul style, Gibson style. I don't know if it was a real Gibson Les Paul or what, but it looked the business, and he had this amplifier and a lead and everything, and he allowed us to play on his electric guitar, and we were just playing these blues So one of the first things I learned on the guitar was this. That. So he showed us that on the electric and let us play it, and it just sounded so fucking good, man. On the electric guitar, I was like, wow, I was blown away. And I always remember that one session, like he took us into his office, like about 3 or 4 of us, and said, right, I've got a treat for you guys. Here's the guitar, play the electric. And so we played the electric, and it was amazing. So I'm very glad that he did that, because that set off the desire to get an electric guitar in the future. So when I got to secondary school, my parents said, look, you can't get an electric guitar unless you prove yourself on the keyboards first. So you got to learn for a year of keyboard and get your grade 1 again or something at secondary school before we allow you to play and have an electric guitar. So that's what we did. I played the keyboard for a year. I did well. I got my grade 1 again for the keyboards. And then they said, right, you've done that for a year. You've proved you can stick to it. So we're going to get you an electric guitar. So I got my first electric guitar, and it was a Squier Stratocaster in white with I think maple neck, I think you call it. Basically, it was a clear white wood, like blanched white neck fingerboard, and a white guitar. And I stuck this Vans sticker on it opposite the input jack. So it had like the input jack and the Vans sticker were like complementing each other, and it was my pride and joy for a long period of time, until later on I realized that because it had a Floyd Rose 2 bridge, if you're aware of this as the guitar playing people out there, a Floyd Rose 2 bridge is like a floating bridge with a whammy bar that allows you to make it go meow, meow, wow, 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 meow, like those sort of like nosedive sounds with by basically flexing and unflexing the strings using this lever called a whammy bar, and it had a locking nut at the top as well, with these 3 locking bits that was supposed to help keep it in tune while you used the whammy bar. But it just never really worked properly. It kept sending my guitar out of tune, so I ended up taking the whammy bar off and locking the bridge down flat so that it wouldn't so I wouldn't have these damn tuning issues with the thing. So me and this girl, who was the wife at primary school, we're at secondary school together. I had my electric guitar. I started playing songs with another friend who was who also had ginger hair, and I'm not going to say his name, so I'll have to make something up. But anyway, the tall ginger guy, tall lanky ginger bloke, right? He also was into electric guitar, and he'd had a black Fender Stratocaster, and I had a white Squier Stratocaster, which was like the cheaper version of the same guitar. So we started playing music together, and that didn't really go anywhere. We just did it kind of like jams and stuff together. But me and this girl started to get the idea that we wanted to form a band. So I started writing songs with her, and we had a bassist came around somehow. We got to know that one of the guys in the year group was a bass player, and we had a drum guy in our class. I think I was about 15 years old at this point. And we formed a band, and we firstly called it Random Band, because I thought random was one of these words that were going around in the slang. That's random. Random. Whenever you see something odd, you'd say, well, random, that's random. Or someone says something odd, you say, random. So yeah, random. Randomness was a word, so we called it Random Band, because I thought, yeah, that's a good name for a band, because like if you're just seeing this band for the first time, they are literally quite a random band to you. They've come out of nowhere, you don't know them, they're a random band. So I called it Random Band. That was the name of our first band name, Random Band. We went round to the drummer's house. He was also like a fledgling DJ at that age. And he had all his DJ equipment and recording equipment and recording software. And we went round to his house and recorded like 2 tracks, one of which was called When I See You, and one was called Melancholy. And I'll just play a bit of When I See You. It goes like this. So that was the main riff, which I came up with myself. And then Melancholy was this riff. Played very badly, but yeah, I could play it better when I was a kid. It's just because I sat in a dodgy position for guitar playing. So we recorded these 2 songs with me singing a bit and her singing a bit. This was the wife, so we made a band. Started off calling it Random Band, and then the drummer ended up not really wanting to do it after a while, so I ended up playing with this the tall, ginger, lanky bloke, my best friend at secondary school, who we looked kind of similar, I guess, but he was just the taller, slightly more handsome version of me that I thought anyway, because he used to get the girl. He always had a girl, and it tended to be one girl, the same girl, as his girlfriend, which I was envious of. And he had sex at age 14 and stuff. So it was really annoying that this guy seemed to get all the breaks, but he was a naughty boy. Kept getting in trouble, and he was the one who first showed me weed, in fact. So I was playing with tall, lanky Shiva alike number 2, and playing guitar with him, and he had been enlisting the help of another drummer from one of the lower years, and I ended up poaching that drummer and stealing him and putting him in our new reformed band, which we then called Silent Dawn. That was the name of the band, and that stuck for a while, even though I wanted to call it Liquid Dawn because it was supposed to be a pun or a play on the idea of a wet dream. But then I ended up calling it Silent Dawn because the people in the band preferred Silent Dawn to Liquid Dawn. So that was that. Right. I might have to pause it for a moment. So Silent Dawn came about, and we played like gigs. We played 1 gig in Hounslow at a pub called the Rifleman, where we earned the grand total of £4.90 from, I don't know, ticket sales or something. I don't know where we got the money from, donations maybe, but we got £4.90 out of the gig. And it was a good gig, and we played at another pub venue, which I can't remember the name of, but that was in Staines. And there were other bands at the time going around with interesting names like Clone of Mel. That was one name. Upshut. That was the name of another band, like weird rock, punk rock, new metal bands were very like heavy and like no one could understand what they were trying to do, but they were very kind of popular back in the old days around this area. Staines, Slough, Hounslow. Did we play at Reading maybe as well? Maybe not the festival, I mean, but in Reading. So we used to do open mic nights in Windsor a lot as well back in the day when they had a lot of open mic nights going on. They still do open mic nights now. And it was weird because we weren't really allowed to be in the venue. We're supposed to be over 18s, but they just allowed us in there anyway. We were the band, and we'd get free drinks as well, often with it. I should mention as well that another thing that went on when I was from the ages of 13 to like 18 was major binge drinking on the weekends with friends. Binge drinking, not smoking weed, but binge drinking. So we'd go round to one of the girls' houses in Raysbury, and like there were six of us. So there was the wife person, there was the tall lanky bloke, there was a blonde girl, a brunette girl, and an Indian bloke, and me. There were six of us, and we used to call ourselves the posse. And it was like major binge drinking, like every weekend pretty much. I used to go to like their house on a Saturday or Friday. No, Saturday. Yeah, Saturday night. Saturday day and night. And we used to have major binge drinking sessions where the two girls, because they looked older than us, they would go down to the off license and pick up some booze and come back, and we would just drink all these like alco pops, and get totally blackout drunk, basically, to the point where I was extremely hungover the next day on the Sundays, where I used to go and play squash, have squash lessons. Squash lessons. Yeah, so I played squash in like not in the team, but in like the tournament thing, as a young person against some like really older guys, but I was quite good. So I didn't end up winning in the tournament or the leagues. I think there were leagues. I didn't end up winning, probably because I was always fucking hungover for the lessons. But my dad taught me a bit of squash, and this guy called Oz taught me the squash. And then I don't know, he got ill or something, and he couldn't play anymore, so he stopped teaching, and I just sort of all fell by the wayside. Squash and racquetball as well. I used to play racquetball with my dad when he could still play. He can't play anymore really because he's got a bit about my dad. So my dad had polio when he was like 2 years old, and he lost some of the nerve endings or something in his leg, and his one of his legs didn't grow properly after that point, and so he's got like a kind of slim, slightly withered leg, and I can't remember which one it is. It's his left leg. It's his left leg, and so he's got like well, he used to have a really well built, very strong right leg, and a kind of weaker, slightly withered left leg, and they used to call him names like Cripple and Slogoch, which was short for slow coach, because he couldn't run as fast as everyone else because of there was a slight length difference in his legs as well. So he was constantly like hurting his back as well, because of the differential in the lengths of his leg, because one of them slightly shorter than the other. It would twist his back like all the time, and he used to play a lot of squash, and he used to play tennis and racquetball, and he used to run exercise classes for people, like training, what do you call it, interval training, I think you call it, intervals. So he used to do like this high intensity training for people, and yeah, so he would be tweaking his back out like constantly, and he would spend long periods of time just lying on the floor in agony, like trying to stretch his back on these back stretching devices that he had, or just having to lie on the floor because it was like better for his back to lie on the floor than to be lying or to be sitting down, sorry. So yeah, so that's something about my dad there. Now, where was I in the story? So we'd had this band. We had the band, yes. We did gigs. We did open mic nights in Windsor. And we're doing the binge drinking. Yeah, so I did a lot of binge drinking when I was younger. And I was still a bit kind of miserable. But I had my first proper sexual experience when I was about 15 or 16. 16 probably. Where I got cozy with this girl on the couch after this binge drinking. Like some other people had come around, as well as the original six of the posse. And basically yeah, I'm not going to talk about it. It's too grim to talk about on video, you know, the ins and outs of sexual experiences. So basically there was some sexual activity, but it wasn't involving my penis. Let's just say that. So yeah, I had my first sexual experience there, which was nice. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And what else? So then I got really angry at her for allowing me to do that because I felt dirty afterwards. And yeah, I wrote some nasty things in like this group journal diary we were passing around, and it was not nice. So yeah, drinking really not great, especially at a young age. Very embarrassing writing certain things in this journal, and then they're all coming out and being exposed when they read it, and like So there was a lot of binge drinking. I played squash. I was hungover, and I played in the band. So let's get up to the age of 16, where I had done my GCSEs and had like done extremely well at them. I got like 9 A stars and 2 A's, which was the highest mark of any boy in the year group total. So there was a girl who got like 11 A stars. That's the highest mark that you could get back in those days. Anyway, I don't know what they do now. I don't even know whether they have GCSEs anymore. Showing my age. So I did really well at my GCSEs, and then went off to Reading Festival. Like, it feels like it was on the day of the results coming through that I went to Reading Festival and watched some bands like The Offspring and the Foo Fighters. I can't even remember who was playing there, but that was good fun. I remember going to Reading Festival one time and getting naked with this girl and hugging her in the middle of the campsite and running around going woo, being naked for about 5 minutes before I quickly got dressed again. So Reading Festival was good. Again, lots of drinking. But then I started to go through this like I don't want to drink phase because I had this realization that I never wanted to drink in the first place, and it was all peer pressure that had caused me to even want to drink in the first place. So I started going to drinking. And there was this one time where we went around. So weed was introduced at a certain point, and I'm not exactly sure when cannabis came into my life, honestly. I remember my friend, the tall, lanky ginger bloke, smoking weed with me. Like one time, we went to this local park near to where I lived in Langley. Now, you might have seen the big video I did about homelessness, psychosis, and weed. So I didn't show this park, but one of the parks near to that house was just down the road, and I used to like play football there as a kid and go on it was called the Curly Whirly Slide Park because it had a curly whirly slide that went round like one turn and then you're off the bottom. But we called it the Curly Whirly Slide Park. So that's now gone because it's all changed and been updated and stuff. And this was like back in the early 90s, it was called the Curly Whirly Slide Park to us. Anyway, I remember going like to this park with tall, lanky, ginger bloke friend, and we must have smoked some weed because I remember like making this joke that the squidgy sound, the squelchy sound of the grass and the mud underneath our feet was like underground rivers. I said, oh yeah, there's underground rivers there, man. And we had a laugh about it and stuff. But I think that must have been the first time I got stoned. I remember just laughing a lot and being in an altered state of consciousness, a mystical kind of vibe. But I mean, yeah, because that was the time when I tried to smoke a twig. My friend was smoking weed in the local woods, and I think it was even hash in those days. And I didn't want to do it to begin with. So I rolled up a twig in a paper and said, yeah, I'm going to smoke this. And I tried to smoke a twig and it didn't work. So you might have seen, I don't know if you're following me or what, if this is a new video, but I did a video ages ago about stupid things I've tried to smoke. One of them was a twig, yeah. So I had a good experience on the weed to begin with. Do you know what? I didn't even know or care that it was illegal. I don't think. We had some drug education at school, like one session. I remember them. In religious education it was, but it was like they used religious education to also talk about other stuff occasionally, like general studies type of thing. So the religious education teacher was doing the drug talk, and she passed around a leaflet, I think, and we were supposed to kind of learn what these different drugs were and what they did to you. And all I remember was that the two naughtiest kids, one of which was my tall ginger friend, um, were like way more knowledgeable about these drugs than the religious education teacher. So they knew all about ecstasy and cannabis, and they were saying there was a big discussion about whether cannabis was a stimulant or a depressant. That alcohol is a depressant, cannabis can be a stimulant and a depressant at the same time, in terms of whether it perks you up or whether it makes you lethargic, kind of thing. And so they might have even tried to get across the idea of indica and sativa at that point. I'm not sure, but they said that cannabis is both a stimulant and a depressant. Ecstasy was a stimulant, and then I don't think we really got much out of other ones like cocaine and heroin. I don't remember them being talked about very much. But yeah, there was one drug lesson, and I didn't take anything on board from it whatsoever. I completely forgot about it instantly. And like I just took from what the mates were saying to me as being more like about the truth of drugs than what the religious education teacher had said. So they were like popping pills like ecstasy and Valium, I think, were going around. So they were like talking about how they'd went to this gig and popped a pill, and they were like bouncing around for ages and stuff. And I don't even know if the word tripping was used, but they were bouncing around for ages, loving it, kind of thing. And I never tried ecstasy as a teenager. I tried cannabis. Yeah, and I remember another cannabis experience as well, where so there was this other kid. I'm not going to say his name, but he was like a chubby kid, tall, bald, and he had like crutches for most of the time in secondary school. And we went around to his house, and he was using it kind of medicinally. And this was the first time I'd ever seen anyone use it for medicinal benefits. But he said basically that it helped with the pain, because he had some kind of, I don't know, some issue in his leg or legs that made it very difficult for him to walk. And he said that it really helped with the pain. So he was using it medicinally. He was like buying hash rocks, Rocky they called it. And then like, so a group of us all went around to this injured like guy who wasn't very well. Went around to his house, and they were passing around the duchy. It might have even called it that. Past the doobie, maybe the zoot, maybe the zoot or the joint, the spliff, passing it around in a circle kind of thing. And I do remember taking some of it, or I don't even know if I took it, but I was getting passively stoned. But I think I must have inhaled some of it. I think I did. Because I just remember giggling a lot and laughing, and that mystical state coming over the whole experience again. Like I call it mystical because it's kind of an expanded state of consciousness somehow for me. It's always been that way. It's always been like the borders of my awareness kind of expand a bit, and like my sense of awareness, I think or consciousness, just grows slightly bigger, and everything becomes more spacious, and there's this kind of like quality to it that is, all I can say is like a mystical state of consciousness that something ineffable is there, present, like in the background, as part of what my awareness becomes when stoned. So that was the first couple of weed experiences. But I never smoked it regularly or anything. I mean, I just every now and again there would be a group scenario like at this unwell person's house where they'd pass around a joint. Um, I may have even used a bong. There was talk about you doing a tulip. So a tulip was made. I think they even made a cross joint at a certain point. A tulip was a big fat bulb of, there must have been tobacco plus hash in those days, because there was hot rock holes in my jumpers and stuff, in my hoodies and in my trousers. So they made this tulip and a big fat thing, and there was all the big fuss yeah, let's do a tulip and stuff. It's going to be amazing kind of thing. And so they passed around a tulip, which is like a big bulbous thing made out of a couple of Rizzler papers done in a certain way. Yeah, with a roach, of course. So that was tulips, and I swear they made a cross joint as well. Yeah, because they were on about making it, and I don't know, I must have been off my tits or something, because I wasn't really following what was going on. But I remember another time we went round to this guy's house who was unwell with the leg issues, and a big group of us, and there was like a really attractive girl, same sort of age, sat next to me, and I got talking to her for absolutely ages about whatever the fuck we were talking about. Politics, art, I don't know. But it was fun because we also did this word game where we would say one word each and try to make a sentence as it goes around the circle. So that was one fun stoner game we did. And I would draw pictures in my sketchbook and stuff, and I did a sketch of my tall, lanky, ginger-haired friend. And it was all good fun. So, moving on to A-levels now. A-levels, I chose art, English, theatre studies, and physics for my AS levels. So I did mainly arty subjects, which was what I was all into in those days. I was really into my arty subjects, art, and I couldn't do music because I didn't have the previous GCSE in music to be able to qualify for the A level to do it. So I didn't do music, but I wanted to do music, but I wasn't allowed to. So that was that. So I did art, English, theatre studies, and physics. Now I dropped the physics after a while because I was like, I don't know, I was good at it, but I wasn't really enjoying learning about it and stuff. So I just decided to give that one up. I mean, I could have taken it forward and probably still done really well in it anyway, but the other subjects were proving to be a bit more difficult. Like theatre studies was really hard for me to understand how to write essays about theatre. I had no idea what they wanted from me, really. I had no idea how to note take for going to a theatre production and taking notes of the style that people were dressed in, the lighting, the costume, the backdrops, the actual ins and outs of how characters were being portrayed by their speech, how they said the lines, what the director's intention was, and all this stuff. I couldn't write essays in theatre to be damned. I could write scripts fine. So when it came down to actually creating pieces of theatre, that was fine. I was good at the creative aspect, but the analytical aspect of it just baffled me. I tried to write it like an English essay, and that didn't work. And I tried to write it like a theatre essay, and that didn't work. So I ended up getting a B in it, which was my lowest grade. The other two I got A's in. So I got A in English and art. Now my art at the first